So the last speaker is somebody from Tartu, Roman Leibov, is associate professor here for Slavic languages. So he's working mostly on Russian literature, and I think with a clear focus on the 19th century. Yes, and he will lead us a little bit to the conceptual history of the Russian term.
From Othain, Polish Othain to Russian Бездна, Russian abyss is not a simple abyss, it's double or a dual abyss. And the first part of my paper will be devoted to the history of the word, not a history of concept. In the Russian context, based on the material of dictionaries and the national corpus of the Russian language, it will be very, very brief sketch only, without examples. The etymology of Russian word is transparent, as you can see. According to Max Fassmer's etymological dictionary, which provides parallels with other Slavic languages. This noun is formed by combining the prefix bez, without, and the noun dno, bottom, which goes back to Proto-Slavic form, Fassmer, or rather his editor Trubachev said as, but I'm not sure, because there is another opposite hypothesis that can be put forward in this regard, regarding this etymology. It is calque, maybe it is calque of Greek lexeme in Church Slavonic texts without any Proto-Slavic roots. We will not dwell in this data in detail, since there is a dictionary of the Old Russian language, and you know, and you can see here two main meanings of this lexeme in Old Russian: bottomless depth and a huge number of something. Ancient Russian and Old Russian sources record, first, the predominance of negative figurative semantics associated with an infernal world, the hell. There are almost no uses of the direct meaning not complicated by this as a connotation, one way or another. But looking at sources connected with the Old Testament, these associations are weakened. The main context here is the second verse of Genesis, of course, and also Psalms. Already in the Old Russian period, the adverbial metaphorical meaning plenty, many, big amount of something was developing. It should be noted that this lexeme's derivates can describe both the excess completeness of divine attributes, like the abyss of God's love for mankind, and the danger of devilish temptation, like the abyss of one's sins. It's very, very simple and obvious fact. Unlike the translations of the Bible into European languages, the old or Church Slavonic translation preserves the diverse contexts of Septuaginta. The Greek Bible. The same applies to the modern Russian translations too. Unlike European translations. For example, looking at a modern Russian, main Russian, modern version of Bible, we can find there about 50 times of use of this word. What do you think about, for example, about Luther's Bible? How many Abgrunds? How many Abgrunds?
Well, probably not that many. I would guess like 15.
Exactly. English and German translations use different words in different contexts. Russians use Бездна for all different kinds of different contexts. Well, let us go further. Dictionary of the Russian language of 18th century allows us to clarify a picture of transformation of usage of this word. As you can see, compared with the Old Russian, two parallel semantics shifts are noticeable. First, the anti-hyperbolic transfer of the abyss of death to the circumstances of everyday life. Abyss of death, abyss of danger or something in novels and so on. And very interesting expansion of the meaning abyss plenty, allowing the word to be applied to everyday circumstances, not only abstract but concrete too. Бездна денег, abyss of money, бездна комплиментов, abyss of compliments, and so on. Now I will speak about one chain of texts, development one motif, the same motif, and we will start from the texts which are interesting, first of all, for Russian tradition, and we'll finish with very strong strong in international context, text strong in international context, but text of different nature. We will start with this one. It's Lomonosov's Evening Reflection upon God's Grandeur, prompted by the Great Northern Lights. Enjoy it. The father of new poetry, Russian poetry, who successfully reformed Russian versification, Mikhail Lomonosov became famous, first of all, as the author of court odes. Among his poetic heritage, a special place is occupied by two spiritual odes, Morning and Evening Reflections upon God's Grandeur. Both texts belong to the spiritual genre of the modern era and are guided by English physical theological poetry like Pope, Edison, and so on, pursued through German translations and imitations. The task that Lomonosov sets himself to is to confirm the thesis about the unknowability of the creator, turning to natural scientific arguments. The evening reflection is entirely devoted to the discussion of the then hypothesis about the origin of northern lights. It is dated 1742 and first published in Lomonosov Rhetorics. Here is the text served as an example of an antinomy in incomplete syllogism. Lomonosov writes, we cannot investigate creation, therefore the creator is incomprehensible. You can spread ideas about the night, about peace, and about the northern lights, which is done in the next ode. And then he printed this text. Researchers have pointed to the connection between the tradition of this theological poetry and the Old Testament, first of all, Psalms and Book of Job, of course. Lomonosov's poem turned out to be extremely important for the Russian tradition. This is due to its metric specificity, rather English or German than Lomonosovan Russian. And to the night theme, which was later picked up in pre-romantic and romantic poetry. The main scientific hypotheses are rhetorically developed here. They alternate in stanzas 3, 5, and the last one, 8, with questions and exclamations that demonstrating to the readers the recognition of the incompleteness of positive cognition of nature. The first stanza, which contains the word abyss, occupies a special place. This is an exposition of reasoning that sets the intonation and mood of the poem. I will read it in Russian, and here is literal translation. Лице свое скрывает день, поля покрыла мрачно ночь, взошла на горы черная тень, лучи от нас сокрылись прочь, открылась бездна, звезд полна, звездам числа нет, бездне дна. As we remember, the traditional use connected the abyss, first of all, with the lower chaotic world, hell, the deep sea. It seems that Lomonosov's inversion is associated with the influence of another stable meaning, old meaning of world abuse, a huge number, many, plenty. Describing the attributes of God, first of all. Abyss of mercy, abyss of destinies, and so on. The boldness with which Lomonosov applied this meaning not to abstract quality of God, but to the physical space of the night sky is impressive, of course. At the same time, one more circumstance should be borne in mind. The phonetic convergence of the Russian Бездна, abyss, and stars, звезды, бездна, звезд полна. This rhyme, in some cases of звезды and бездна, they are rhymed. Is very important for Russian tradition, I think. The night poetry of pre-Romanticism and Romanticism captured Russia at the end of 18th century. The English and German traditions were especially significant. Here, thank you, Marco, for your presentation with all these quotations from German Romantic. But I would add a very important for Russian tradition text. It's like Russians said, used to say, Edward Jung, but he's really Edward Young. English pre-Romantic. His complaint or night thoughts were repeatedly translated into Russian from the original or from French, German, and so on. The new tradition, and it's important because abyss is very important word both for Young and for his Russian translators. It's very frequent lexeme here. And in the Lomonosovian rationalistic tradition, the appeal to God was intended to reconcile with the incompleteness of scientific knowledge about the cosmic abyss. In Young's sentimental poetry, the same appeal reconciles the grieving soul with the abyss of despair. The new tradition of night poetry continues among romantics. Of course, in Russia, the new idea of abyss, night abyss, was most fully embodied in the lyrics of Fyodor Tyutchev. And Tyutchev graduated from Moscow University and spent about 20 years in Germany in the diplomatic service. His poetry combines an orientation towards the Russian Odic tradition of the previous century and the genre of the romantic fragment. Let me demonstrate to you some Tyutchev's texts. Absolutely canonical for Russian, the tradition of Бездна. Tyutchev's theme of the abyss becomes existential. The abyss represents the infinity of other being, does understand, and or non-being, le non-être, which opens up to the human soul in the midst of the infinity of the night. I will read in Russian, but only fragments which marked with bold font here. Намеркнет день, настала ночь, пришла из мира рокового ткань благодатную покрова, сорвав, отбрасывает прочь, и бездна нам обнажена своими страхами и мглами. With all its mists and fearsome sights. И нет преград между ей и нами, вот от чего нам ночь страшна. No. But Tyutchev's interpretation of the abyss is not limited to the night theme. It's significant. The abyss opens when referring to the topic of time, individual, what's more important and sad than not knowing, who has the courage to say, see you soon, across an abyss of 2 or 3 days. 2 or 3 days, or historical abyss of historical time, historical historical abyss. Completing life's useless game, one by one her children, she, nature, devours and her peacemaking abyss, welcome and treating everyone of the same. No. It's another set of examples. That. The theme of the double abyss, Tютчев theme of double abyss, dual abyss or double abyss, was also developed by Tютчев's contemporaries. First of all, let us name one very influential poem by Afanasy Fet. Tютчев describes the double abyss as a reflection of the sky in the water. Here. Fet, in an impressionistic manner, transforms the point of view of the subject of the lyrics. His hero lies face up, while the night sky is described as an abyss. The difference with Lomonosov's hero is obvious. To admire the greatness of God, Lomonosov had to look from the bottom up. Fet sees night face to face. His hero lies. Then he sees night face to face. And then he changes the position radically to the 118 grades. Я несся к бездне полуночной, или сонмы звезд ко мне неслись. Казалось, будто в длани мощной над этой бездной я повис. I'm finishing. Fet was a close friend of Leo Tolstoy and one of his favorite poets. Fet translated into Russian Schopenhauer's works, and Leo Tolstoy read it. Tolstoy was also a fan of Tютчев's lyrics. Therefore, we should not be surprised that the motifs of these poets very directly reflected in the allegorical dream, which was retold by Leo Tolstoy in the postscript to his confession. Tolstoy, with his inherent straightforwardness, endows vague images with an ambiguous moralistic meaning, while appealing to bodily motor skills and describing his sleep as the quintessence of the religious experience of a person of new era deprived of support in traditional religious feelings. The fear of the bottom abyss is here recorded as a vertigo. One can overcome, Tolstoy's hero can overcome it only by peering into the upper abyss. Let me conclude with this quotation. I had a dream, I see that I'm lying in bed, feeling neither good nor bad. I'm lying on my back, but I begin to wonder whether it is a good thing for me to be lying here. And it seems to me that there's something wrong with my legs. Looking about my bed, I see that I'm lying on some cords woven together and attached to the sides of bed. Somehow I know that these cords can be shifted. I'm supported only along the upper part of my back, and for some reason I begin to feel not only uncomfortable but terrified. I look below, and I cannot believe my eyes. I am resting on a height such as I could never have imagined, a height altogether unlike that of the highest tower of mountains. I cannot even tell whether I can see anything down below in the bottomless depth of the abyss over which I am hanging and into which I am drawn. My heart stops, and I am overcome with horror. It's horrible to look down there. I feel that I am losing the last ounce of my excuse me, of my strength from sheer terror, and that my back is slowly sinking lower and lower. Another instant and I shall break away. Above me there is also an abyss. I gaze into this abyss of the sky and try to forget about the one below. And I actually do forget. The infinity below repels and horrifies me. The infinity above attracts me and gives me strength. Thus I am hanging over the abyss, hanging over like feet. The abyss suspended by the last of the cords that have not yet slipped out from under me. Typical Tolstoyan, this matrix. As it happens in a dream, a voice is saying, "Mark this, this is it." I gaze deeper and deeper into the infinity about me, and I seem to grow calm. I recall everything that has happened, and I remember how it all came about. How I moved my legs, how I was dangling there, the horror that came over me, and how I was saved from the horror by looking up. And as soon as I glance around, I feel with my whole body a support that is holding me up. All this was clear to me, and I was glad and at peace. Then it is as if someone is saying to me, "See that you remember." And I awoke. This leads us to talk about Dostoevsky, but this topic is obviously already beyond the scope of my presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. There's a question I'll pass on to Janos.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I was wondering, I think Leonid Andreev has a short story called The Abyss. And I think it was like some kind of answer to Tolstoy's Kreutzer Sonata. So this Tolstoy's, but I don't remember what was the discussion or debate about. So I think Leonid Andreev was somehow critical of Tolstoy's Kreutzer Sonata. But why did he call his short story The Abyss? I really don't remember. Do you have anything to say?
No, I don't know. It's an interesting question. And it's very interesting about all romance of this, all story of Leonid Andreev and Tolstoy is very interesting at all.
All right, other questions? Yeah, Janika? Yeah, that's fine.
I have two questions. One is just, my Russian isn't so good. It's about the gender of the word, because it comes from the genitive, but what it is. Are there also feminine forms? And the other is, I'll ask at once, perhaps I remember incorrectly, is there something like an abyss as a Russian character or Russian soul, бездна русского характера? Or is
like,
it...
Russian русская бездна, Russian abyss is maybe stronger than Polish abyss. It's a very usual collocation, yeah. And what's about gender, grammatical gender? It's now no. In Old Russian, there was multiplicity of genders. Both бездна and бездние neutral. Бездна feminine and бездние neutral. Now it's feminine. Yeah.
I also have a question, Roman. I was wondering whether, I mean, you gave all these examples mostly from the Romantic and post-Romantic period, And I was wondering how far that might have been indeed influenced by the German Romantics. Or was there also in Russia before already quite a long tradition of this notion of the abyss, as for instance in the mystics? Are you aware of that? Have the mystics, similarly to what I have explained in Germany, also worked a lot with this kind of notion of Bezdna?
You mean mystics? What kind of mystics? Like who?
Well, I would say earlier mystics, yeah. So starting from the medieval ages, but you can also take later, of course, religious mystics, whatever.
I mentioned Young just because he was one of the favorite writers of Russian Masons, and Young, and maybe who also from mystics, maybe Jakob Böhme. But it was a very short period of the Ekaterina the Great, short period of Russian Freemasonry. Russian culture is not too long. New Russian culture, I mean. Yeah.
But would you confirm that there is a strong German influence and for this kind of line of thought, or it has developed independently from that?
I have to think about it.
Okay, good. James appears on screen. You have a question, James?
I want to leave the discussion open. I have a couple of reflections, but I'd like everyone else to have their say first.
Any other remarks? No?
I'll go. Marco, I think that's really what I would love to see you doing with Roman. Thank you, Roman, for this paper. It's an important paper. It's an important paper because it's on Russian, but it's also from an Estonian perspective. That seems to me fascinating, and that the references you have and your reflections on how this is a Slavic concept or how it's influenced by other traditions. Marco's question is vital here. You know, to what extent is the German or the Prussian, not the Prussian Slavic, but the Prussian German tradition impacting? How is that impacting on Lithuania? How is it impacting on Estonia? How is it impacting on Polish? These are really important questions, and they're really questions for me for a workshop and for us to think together, not for publication, not yet. But I was really, Roman, I really liked your joke. I really enjoyed your joke about, the Polish and the Russians harder. And I'm thinking, Roman's thinking in terms of vodka. You know, there's Polish vodka, there's Russian vodka. So I'd like to raise my glass to you. I'm here with the whiskey.
That's the Scottish coming out there.
I mean, it's very important that, Marco, that my empty bottle of whiskey will be open next time. And I hope we'll have time to come together with that. These are really, really important questions, I think. How do we get beyond the Romantic and into the medieval period? When we get into the medieval period, do we come from Latin with ab, from Latin, or are we coming from, Greek? The translations will be different. Marco's the person that understands this more than anybody else because he's Serbian. He's on the side of the Cyrillic, Orthodox Greek tradition. We're mostly on the side of the Latin tradition, but the Hebrew tradition will take us into different translations. That's why Marco and me are really very, we're brothers on this question because we did our PhDs with the great translator of the Bible, Meshenik, who will be translating from Hebrew, and that will transform all of our notions of the firmament, the sky, space. And I think that those would be really fascinating questions to discuss, at a future date. Thank you very much, Roman.
Thank you, James. Yeah, and I think you also gave a good hint at ending this day for our papers. I think it was a rich day, but tomorrow we will even widen the scope because today we stayed within Europe, but tomorrow we'll go first of all back in time to really foundational cultures, which have, of course, shaped also Europe and the intellectual history of Europe. But we will also go beyond the European borders and look at Asian cultures. And so that will give it another dimension again. So I hope that you will all be here with us again. I'm very pleased to see quite a few students amongst us. And yeah, please come again. And so for tonight, we'll end it here. Yeah.